So today we'll start with web components. So we'll go through some brief understanding on what are web components and all, and we'll take up some examples. Okay, let me know once I were to view my screen.
Yes, I can see you.
Okay. So Lightning web components. What are these? Again, this is in line with our Lightning Aura framework. So the UI is Lightning experience, but the framework is a bit different. So when I used to create Lightning components using Aura framework, I had different types of files, right? So for a particular component, I had Lightning component file. I had a controller.js file. I had a helper.js design file, then svg file, css file, render file. So all these different files were there, right? That's how. And then from controller I used to connect with my apex. That's how the structure was, right? Now with web components, it uses core web component standards. So there are certain there is a web standard to build components, which is called web components. Okay, from that framework, Lightning created its own packages and all, which is called Lightning web components. So they follow a web component standard. So Lightning components, it uses these web component standards and provides only what's necessary to perform well in browsers supported by Salesforce. So this, I mean, as per Salesforce, this seems to be more responsive and more faster in terms of the UI responses. Okay, so that's why web component was introduced, and again it's more generic and in line with other technology web developers. Okay, because web component is generic and it's a similar standard which other developers, other web developers also follow. It will be kind of convenient for other web developers to understand Lightning better way. Okay, again, Lightning web components is lightweight and delivers good performance. And again, all our code, so with this they are trying to basically build more of UI based code, which will be faster and less server interaction. Like basically they say you don't have to use apex much, but yeah, I mean, real time scenarios, many places you have to go for apex. But these Lightning data services which they have, and wire services they have with web components, which they have already built using certain UI APIs in Salesforce. So that makes things I mean, easier, that you just have to, someone with just HTML and JavaScript knowledge can also do development easily without with limited knowledge on Apex. So that's what with web components we get. Okay, so this is I mean, a structure. So again, what are the files, different files that will be available? So we'll have a HTML file, which will be our UI. We'll have a JavaScript file, and then we'll have a XML file that will store the information of where these web components will be used. Like if you remember, when we build a Lightning component, we implement interfaces like available for all page types, or available for Lightning quick action, or available for only home pages. So those things we define, right? As an interface, we implement those. So here in that XML file, we define if it needs to be used for a record page or a home page. So those things we define there. HTML is nothing but our UI component which we build, similar to what we were doing in Lightning components. And JavaScript file, rather than having a controller.js, helper.js, all those things, you have a single JavaScript file. Again, you can create your own helper classes and access it. You can reference those helper JSs, but mandatory is one HTML file, one JavaScript file, and the XML file. CSS file is not mandatory, but again you can create your own CSS file and refer it. So that is possible, and all those things you have to refer in your main JavaScript class. Okay, again we'll perform these activities, how we create and all. Just want to give you a brief understanding that this is the structure. Okay, now see, as up till now we were using developer console to build our Apex classes or Lightning components, events, whatever we were doing. We were using dev console, but Salesforce has a official IDE, which is Visual Studio Code. IDE is in your development environment, right? So but web components we can't develop in dev console. We have to go for Visual Studio Code. So we have to install Salesforce CLI. In this slide I have provided the link where we can install it. Then we have to install Visual Studio Code. Okay, once you have installed Visual Studio Code, you have to install Salesforce extension pack and web component extension pack. So these are the mandatory things which we need to install. So extension packs will be within Visual Studio Code, just like when once you have installed Chrome, you install plugins, right? So similarly, these are kind of plugins which you have to install in Visual Studio Code to build Salesforce projects. Okay, and additionally this CLI, once you have installed, we have to add it to our environment path. So in our path we need to environment variables we have, right there, we need to add the installed path for CLI. Okay, so let me just quickly show you how Visual Studio Code looks, and what are the other things which we need to see. So environment variables setting up, you guys are aware?
What, Prashant?
Environment variables setup. So once you have installed
Mm,
uh, uh, once you have installed let's say application, you can set the path variable.
mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll just show that. Let me share my screen. Okay, I can't show it here. Okay, one second. I'll show that. Before that, I'll just show you how, I mean, what is the place where you set up the, uh, how you install the extension packs and all. Okay. Let me share this. You able to see my screen?
Yes, Prashant.
Okay. So this is how Visual Studio Code looks like. Okay. What we need to do is, as I said, we have to install Salesforce CLI from the link. I've already shared the link in the PPT. You can install it. It's pretty straightforward. Once you install it, there would be a bin location where you will have the execution. So Salesforce CLI is like a command prompt execution. Okay, you can run certain commands like to authenticate, to log into a Salesforce org and all those things, you can perform those commands in Salesforce CLI. So for that we need to go to our systems environment variable and provide that path, add that path. I will share those steps with you. Okay, once you're done with that, you in your Visual Studio Code you can build Salesforce projects. So how we do that? So after setting up your Salesforce CLI, you should go to plugins. So let me go there. One second. So this is my extension tab, okay, on the left side. So here I should search for Salesforce extension pack. Okay, so why Salesforce extension pack? This is like a group pack which will have these Salesforce extensions already installed. So once I install this, I'll have a Apex extension pack, Apex debugger, Visual Force, Aura components. So there are multiple packs that will get installed, Lightning Web Components. So all these will get installed. So once this is done, I am good to uh, build a Salesforce project. Okay, so I'll have Salesforce CLI, I'll have Salesforce extension pack installed. Now once I have done that, what I can do is I can run this command palette and say, so this view command palette. Okay, so once you do this, here you can have sfdx. Sfdx comes with, so it's all these sfdx commands, right? These are Salesforce CLI commands. Okay, so what we should do, as I said, we need to build a Salesforce project. So we should always, ideally we should go for a project with manifest. Okay, so when you select this, it will ask, okay, what is the template you want to follow? You can say standard template, and you provide a uh, name for the project. Let's say self training vs code, something like that. You put. Then you store it here. And let's say I'll have a folder. I'll create a new folder saying self in project one. Something. I'll select this folder and say create project. So once I have done that, if you see, it builds a structure for me. So I have VS Code, config, force app, manifest. So these are the important folder. This is a folder structure that is needed for me. Okay. So next is, if I go to force app, this is where my components will be there. Let's say I'm building a project and I want to create a new object. So the object will come here. Let's say I want to build some lightning component. So here it will be there, lightning components and all. So once I have created a project, next would be to connect to a org. So if you see here, it says no default org set below. Able to see?
Yes.
Yeah. Once you click on this, what it will say? It will say authorize an org, authorize a dev hub. So we'll not go to dev hub and scratch org yet. That's part of your deployment techniques and all. But we'll say we'll authorize an org. Okay. So we'll select this. We'll say I want to authorize a production org. Let's say mine training training up. See, I mean, before working on like before building components or anything, first I should connect to a org, right, where I want the components to be there. Now previously I was directly doing in dev console, so obviously it was directly created in the org. Now it's local, So I have to deploy my code to a particular org, right? So once I click on this, once I'm creating this org, it will run like authorize an org. So authorize an org will redirect me to my browser with the login page. So I will share where it has redirected me. 1 second. You able to view my screen?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
when
Prashant.
I invoked authorize org, right? See, it invoked the browser with login.salesforce asking me to log into Salesforce. Now here I have to log into Salesforce, my training org, to make it happen. Okay, to authorize the org, and once I have logged in, what will happen is my Visual Studio Code will be authorized. As of now, it's still searching, running an authorizer. So info dot Okay, I think I gave wrong. Let me just quickly check. What is the username? Let me try again. Okay. See, now it says authorize and not successful because I've logged in successfully, right? So once I have logged in, I can build my components here. Now let's say I want to build a lightning component, right? I go to Aura and say right click. I'll say create a lightning app, lightning component, lightning event, all these. So all these we were able to see in dev console, right? So but here also I can create it and I can deploy it. So let's say I'll just, so lightning component is nothing but the aura component. Okay, but why I didn't, because I was able to do those in dev console itself. Okay, but it's a good practice to use a id and do the development and do the necessary deployment from there, right? So let's say I will, okay, let's create aura component to start with, just to help you understand. So my aura cmp, something like that, and ask me where you want to store. We'll say the default location. Okay, it built the aura component. I'll say my comp from VS Code. I just type in some text and I say implements flexi page available for all page types. So this is for me to use this component in all the record pages. Let's want it. So I have built this component. Next, I will deploy it. How I will deploy? I can just click on this, right click, and say deploy source to org. If I do that, then it deploys the R. If I have to retrieve, I can retrieve also. I will show you how we retrieve, but now I have built this component and I want to deploy it. So I'll just click deploy source to org. Because I've already connected, so it will deploy to the org which I have connected. Okay, I got some error, I believe. Let's see. No interface. Okay, so I think I gave a wrong interface. Available for, okay, there's a E. Let's try again. So here in output panel, I can see if there are any exceptions or if was successful. It successfully ran. Now if I go back and see if my lightning component got installed or not, go to let me go back, go to lightning UI. I'll switch to lightning. And I will go to lightning component. So it should be available here. My Aura CMP. See, it is there. Today itself it got deployed. Right? Now if I want to use it, let me go to sales app and try and add it to account record page, or we'll add it to, let's say, contact record page. Edit page. Because I've implemented available to all page types, so the component should be available here. See my Aura component. I will drag and drop it here and save it. I'll activate it. So if you see, the component is, see my component from VS Code. So I was able to deploy it, right? Next we'll go for a web component. So where I'll have web component, see LWC. This is the place where I can build a lightning web component. Okay. So I'll right click. I will say create lightning web component. So I have to give my LWC CMP. I gave a name. Again, default folder location. We will store it there. So it created 3 required files. One is HTML file, one is JS file, and one is the meta XML file. Okay, so these 3 files are needed for my web component to work. Okay, so let's say my web CMP. Okay, and I need to add the meta file. 1 second. There is a particular syntax. I need to get that. Wherein we, so this is the place where so in Aura components we were using implements to add it for available page types, right? All page types. So here we have a particular syntax. Let me just quickly check that. I don't remember the exact syntax. uh, Let me open it. Okay, so we have something called targets. So here we can say it's related to a app page or record page or a home page. Okay, so once you're done that, we'll save it and I say my LWC, right? So I'll right click on this and I will say deploy source to org. Okay, I've deployed it. Now let me save the screen and I will try to add the component that I deployed into the same page. Hmm, let me see if it got deployed or there were some errors. Okay. I think it got deployed.
And uh, Prashant, like the screen is same. Our lightning screen.
Yeah.
It won't change the web
No.
components for the web.
Correct. So our lightning experience will still be the same.
Oh, so the front end is not changing anything. So only back end coding and
Mhm.
all.
Mhm. Right.
Oh, okay, okay. Got it.
So I don't. One second. Let me see if it got deployed or not. Yeah. So UI is still lightning experience. That's why we say lightning web components. So our
Oh,
UI
okay,
doesn't change. Just our development framework. Basically, that changed.
okay, okay. Then see, then I don't understand. See, then any client, why would they start changing the web components? Because see, when they always think like if there is a UI changing or
Hmm,
some
hmm,
they are
hmm.
getting some good
See, as I
features.
said,
Like
right? With,
why would
yeah.
they
So with
what?
LWC, what happens is you are getting a more performant system, right? So your
Mm-hmm.
performance is faster. So you when you load a page, if you have a Lightning component as compared to a Lightning Web component, it will perform better. It
Mm-hmm.
will perform faster. So yeah, you I agree. Like there might be less migration. Like let's say I built some Lightning components, I might not migrate that, but they'll ask, okay, what are the new components you build? You use LWC because there are ways where I can interact from a LWC to a Lightning component as well, to Aura component. So that
Mm.
interaction can still happen. So I might not have to migrate each and every step, each and every component, but whatever new ones I build, clients are expecting that you use LWC.
Yes, yes, I know, but I'm just
Correct?
saying like for current projects right now, whatever like on our lightning. So a client, why would he care? Like if something is changing from the back end, he doesn't care, right? He doesn't care
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the
See,
developers part.
client doesn't care, as in clients are very aware these days, very informative these days, right? So someone who is
Yes,
paying
yes,
heavily for Salesforce licenses, do you really think they're not interacting with Salesforce guys? And when let's say I built a product, obviously I'll try to sell it, right?
yes, yes,
I'll I will say that why you're still using Aura framework when we have a better framework now, which will be faster for you to which will give you a faster user experience,
yes, yes,
right? So obviously that's where things will change.
yes,
They'll
yes,
ask
yes,
you what is that you're using,
yes, yes.
right?
True.
I still can see it. Aura, my aura components. What is that? My LWC. Um, okay, let me just check the file again. Okay, is exposed. I haven't set it. I haven't exposed it yet. I have to deploy it again. Again, once you are used to Visual Studio Code, it's not that difficult to do the deployments analysis. It's pretty straightforward. I build a component, I right click and I do a deploy source, and I have the component available immediately. It doesn't take even time.
Yes, yes.
And this is one of the deployment techniques which is used these days.
Oh, actually,
Yeah,
this is very simple and easy.
yeah, that's what. So I mean, kind of a point and click deployment process,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yep.
So I have added. So this is the web component. This is the and again, the more I try building, you will see the UI is same. It's Lightning experience only.
Yes.
Okay. So next is what are the sources I have to go for while building Lightning components and all. Again, the answer is the same. Like for Lightning components, you are going to component library. Here also, you have to go for component library. Okay, so below we were always using Aura components. Here we have Lightning web components, right? So if I
Mm-hmm.
want to build, let's say a button, what is the syntax to build a button? This is how. So I will get a syntax. Okay, so to build a button, this is the basic HTML I have. Okay, and I have a JS file. So you can always take a button, let's say, copy it, and again it's not that different. So let's say to this component I would like to add a button. Okay, I will say lightning button. So if you remember, when we were using lightning components, we were using lightning colon button, right? So if I go to Aura component button here, so it is lightning colon button, right? So colons are replaced with hyphen. Colons are replaced with hyphen. Okay, and we were using c dot handle click to call JavaScript with a exclamation mark. That has been removed completely, so there is no exclamation mark needed. There is no c dot needed. You just directly put the JavaScript method here, handle click. Okay, so this is how our buttons are created. So if I again go back, I'll just copy the HTML JavaScript code here just to show you how it works. This is again a default syntax. So if I go to my JavaScript code, I have to import lightning element, and this is the uh, it extends lightning element, and this is the JavaScript class, default JavaScript class, which will be there. Okay, inside this I will add the button syntax which I want. Okay, and if there is anything I want to see, let's see. Basically what we are looking at is when I click on a button, I am trying to set a label which button was clicked. Okay, so how I'm doing, see, we don't have any attributes. So if you compare with lightning components, we were starting with Aura component, ending with Aura component, and in, whatever attributes I want to use, I was setting it Aura attributes. Here we don't do it on the page level. Page level starts with template. Okay, normal HTML you can use like divs, spans, anchor tags, whatever you want to, you can use piece, paragraph tags, span tags, all those things you can use. No change there. And again, if you see, the classes are lightning experience classes. which are there out of the box, right? You can use your own classes as well. Okay, so this is the basic syntax. You start with template, and with template, whatever buttons previously you were using lightning colon button, you will use lightning hyphen button. Okay, and other lightning tags also, whichever are available, you can always check here in component reference for the web components, whatever available components are there out of the box. Okay, now here what I'm doing, I have built a button. I'm saying on click, you handle click, and then handle click what you want to do. Again, import. This is by default when you create. This will be there. This is necessary. Lightning element is necessary. Then see, this is one variable, right? Click button label, which I am using here. Click button label, right? So I don't have to define a aura attribute here to use it. I just have to define it here. Okay, then handle click is the method which I am using on click. So I have defined handle click by default for any event. So on click event or on hover event, whatever is it, all your methods which are there, it should pass a parameter called event. Okay, so even if you remember in our previous sessions we discussed, like on click, let's say I want to capture which button clicked me, right? So I use event dot get source dot get, then we were using event dot get source there. So here what we will use event dot target. Then I can access the properties of the event that fired me. So I am looking at label, right? Event dot get target dot label. So let me put one more button so that we can differentiate. I will say, let's say BTN1. Two buttons, both doing the handle click. Now let me deploy this. I will refresh. Okay, I have button 1, button 2. Let me click on this. See, here it says base. I will click on this. I will say button 1. Right? Got a understanding how we are handling clicks, like how our UI HTML page is interacting with the JS page.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's take a quick.
What is the use of that? Like we have configured something, but like what exactly we use for this meta XML?
Yeah. So why? I mean, this is again, it's kind of custom page you can build. Like we were using Aura framework, right, to build components. So if you remember, we built some components to see list of contacts, right here, related contacts or related Outlook contacts. Then we talked about component events, how we are managing. So again, a custom requirement to build a page, we will go for web components there rather than Aura components. Okay. So same, like let's say I want to build a record, build a page where I want to see list of records, and on click I want to show a pop-up. Any custom requirement, complex requirement that can't be achieved through standard page, a custom UI. So just like we were building Aura components, we can also build LWC. How to build LWC? How to build a Lightning Web component? This is the structure. So we'll have a HTML file, we'll have a JavaScript file, we'll have a meta file. A meta file will define where we are going to use. Let's say I just want to use for record page, I will just have target as record page. I'll not have app and home page, right? So and again, all your logic of building your data or interacting with Apex will be there in this JS, and whatever attributes you want to use in UI, that you have to define here itself, rather than build writing your attributes on the UI end. Here it will just be plain HTML codes, and whatever values you want to see, you will use the attributes that are defined in the JavaScript itself.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, we will again take few more examples where we are interacting with Salesforce data. This is just to give you a brief understanding on how, what is the structure of web component, how we deploy it, where we develop it, all those things. Then we'll talk about use cases that will make more sense and more in line with our Salesforce data and Salesforce objects. Here we haven't even talked about how we query, how we use Apex, right? Or how we use Lightning data services in web components, which we already talked in Aura components, right? We'll look at similar use cases which we built using Aura components, and we'll try and build it in LWC.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll see we'll try to enhance this component and add few more basic use cases in here. Okay.
Sure.
Guys, I'm back. I'm sharing my screen. Shall we start?
Yes, Prashant.
Yeah, Prashant.
Okay. All right. So next we'll try and use our Lightning data services to build some forms. Okay, like we did for uh, our Lightning components, where we had used like view form, edit form, those things, right? We'll see how those work here. Okay. So let me go back. Okay, I'll share the whole screen so that you can see. So basically what I will do is, it's not like I'll just type in. We will try and find uh, how the this how this recorded form view form works, and we'll try to reuse it. Okay, so let me see view. Again, I'm in component library component reference. I say this is the record view form, right? Again, if you remember, it's similar in Aura components, how it was record capital view capital F, right? Record view form. So when you're accessing a component or a attribute, okay, it uses for components. If you have, let's say you built a component saying record view form, okay, when you try and access it, like camel case, right? So wherever capital is there, before that you put hyphen and everything will be small. Okay, for components, that's how we access. Okay, so in Aura component it used to be record capital V capital F. Here it will be lightning hyphen record hyphen view hyphen form. Okay, but again, you don't have to remember that. Just I want you to map it with the way our Aura component syntaxes used to be, right? So again, let's take this. So this is the view form thing, right? So let me copy this. We'll build a new component. We'll have that component as it is, and we will build a new component. New create web component. We'll say LWC view or LWC form. LDS will be Lightning Data Services. Okay, it created those three files. Here I'll just copy paste this. Record ID I need to provide. So we had v dot record ID used, right? So we'll just use record ID. Okay, I see there is some error. Ambiguous attribute record. If you want to make it valid, we should remove surrounding quotes. Okay, so let me just see. I want it for, let's say, contact. We'll say contact object name and email field. See some error, but I believe it should work. This component again needs to be used. So we will update its meta file with these things. Okay. Right. Let me deploy this. Let's install. Let's see if there are any errors or it's deployed successfully. Okay, it got deployed. Let's come back. We go to contact record. And here we will add this page. I have this. We'll build a tab and we'll add it there just for better user experience. Contact custom form something like that. And we will add LWC LDS. Sheriff. Okay, it doesn't give anything. Okay, as of now, let me just try with a hard-coded ID and see if data is coming or not. Okay, let me just quickly check if there are any other mandatory things I should put in. Okay, nothing is there. Should or do we need to implement anything? Let's see. So see, this gives me some details, but if I go to the developer guide here, so I was in component reference tablets and developer guide. I'll have more information. So I'll just see work with Salesforce data and go to Lightning Data Services and see for the examples if I'm missing anything. Yeah. So here I have record view form. Okay. So it doesn't seem to implement anything. Now it has the record ID. It implements API as well. So I think this is not that I have implemented. Record ID. I'll go to the JS file, API, and here again I will define. Okay, this is not needed. Okay, let's see. This is the data. Entrance I have, like record view form, set contact, name, email. That's it. No contact. Anything else I'm missing? I have record ID. It's properly framed, right? Okay, for contact, I have name and email fields. Like that. Okay, let's say last name. Try and reply now. I think because of name there might be some issue. Okay, now let's refresh. right? It came because I think last name I gave name, right, so that's why it threw me. It didn't uh, show the data, right? So I'm able to get the form, right? So in case I want, so here it's view form, I can also go for edit form. Is the same. I mean, again, if I want more details on edit form, all those things, I can always come back. So load record, I use view form, right? If I go to edit record, this is where I have the edit form information as well. So for edit form, what are the details I need? I can have that, right? And it will give me some examples as well, right? So again, I can use this and build a edit form, right? So it's again similar to the way we used to do in Aura components, right? Just a little bit of syntax and structure is changing, right?
Yeah, Prashant.
So now if you see, without using Apex, again, even in Aura we were doing it, this is Lightning Data Services, right? So we are able to see data without using Apex, right? So now how to use Apex and what is the way we, I mean, how it helps us and all those things, and what is the way we access Apex. We will take a quick example. So let me, I already have something in place. Let me get that. Or else we will take from here, call Apex methods. This is a very good place to learn Lightning Web Components. Okay, now in component reference you'll get the syntaxes. This is a guide, very well structured and um, very well explained as well, right? So I would, anyways, I've shared these links, so I would certainly suggest for you to go for this. Okay, so we will again get the list of contacts and how we will do that query. We will see that. I already have one. Let me get that for you guys. Stop sharing. Okay, let me share my screen. I got the project which I wanted to show you. So I had built a Lightning component for account search. Okay, I will deploy it and then I will explain you how this works. So let me deploy it. Okay, got deployed. Let me add it as a tab here. Let me just reuse the same one. Okay. So this component is kind of search component we have built, wherein if I, let's say, search with test and search, it will give me list of accounts, phone number and source with name as test. Okay, let's say I search for SEC. It will give me where it has SEC. Okay, so what all we have done with this, I will show. So what we have done is we first thing is I have built a Apex class, okay, which is custom search controller. Let me show you that. Let me first. Okay, I don't have it here. Let me open it on Dev console. So classes doesn't change anything here in the class. Same we say aura enabled, and but we give cacheable equal to true. This you can even give an aura components. What this does it, like, let's say you have called this method once, then if you call it again, it will try to reuse the data again. I mean whatever is there in the UI end. Okay, so it doesn't query it again. So that's where things become faster, like cache we do, right? So your search is being cached once. So here what I'm doing, I'm sending a keyword and I'm querying account and returning you the list of accounts. Okay, that's what we're doing. This is a simple code. Any questions with this controller here?
Now present.
Okay, so this is what I'm using. So how I am referencing, how I'm, so let's first talk about, okay, I have my controller, how I am referencing it in my Lightning Web Component. So in Aura component, we were referencing it as a controller on the UI end itself, right, on the component front. But here on the JS, see, this is default we have, right, Lightning element from LWC. This will come by default. What we are using, we'll again importing the server side Apex class method. So we are importing at Salesforce Apex my class name dot method name that I'm importing. So this is the method name, right? Get account list. So I have imported that. Next, I am also importing the show toast method. Lightning platform show toast. For show toast message again, I'm importing the show toast method to show a toast message. Okay. So all these I can import. Where I will get the information, again you will get the information in component library for all those. So if I go to my component library and do, let's say, toast, I will search. See, again in component library also I have all these information, whatever I want. Right here you have all the details on what are the like what is the show toast and all those things, how we use it. So again, this is your one-stop shop for everything, right? So don't worry, okay, how I'm going to remember and all. Always come back here, search for, let's say you want a toast message, a notification to be shown. Come here and see how it is being used. Take the sample code and use it for your reference, right? And update it with what you need. Okay.
Yeah.
So this I imported. Then this is our default class, right? Export default class, your class name, and extend Lightning element. Next, why we use track? Track is used for interacting between your JavaScript attribute. So this is like an attribute definition. Okay, so why we need to use track is if it's a array or a object or a list of object, then you would need to use track to interact and render your data, re-render your data on UI end. Okay, so that's why we need track. So track makes a property for internal monitoring, and we can use this to re-render the when the property value changes. Okay, it's like a variable definition so that we can do the interaction and do the interaction between your JS and HTML. Okay, so for normal variables, input variables, we don't need it, but when it's a list of object or those things, we need to put track there for auto rendering. Okay,
Yeah, Prashant.
so these are some small things which we need to remember. Once we are used to, will be, I mean, there won't be any difference, right? Like there we were using component.find, or we are defining an attribute. So those things were some standards we are following. For LWC, these are some standards we need to follow. At track, at API, these are some proper, I mean, some syntaxes we need to remember to deal with the attributes. Okay, so next, if you see for sval, I haven't provided any track because it's a normal string variable, right? So we don't need a track for that. Next, I'll go to our HTML. Okay, so here, if you see, we have one lightning input, which we see on the UI end. This is the input, right? So this is the lightning input, label as account name, value as sval. Okay, so whatever value I enter here, that will be stored in sval. Okay, I have a on change event again. So on change, you call a method called update search key. So if I go to, let me close other tabs. See, we have a update search key method. As I said, for all the events, we should have an event parameter set. I'm saying event.target.value. One second, it's open to the side. Okay, that would be convenient for me. Okay, so here I have, whenever on change happens, this method will be called. Here I'm saying this dot, I mean this component dot attribute value, whatever is there, is equal to event.target.value. So I'm setting the value. So whatever I have provided, like whatever I have typed in, that will be stored in event.target.value. So you set it to sval. Okay, so that's where our update search key helps me. Next is when I click on search button. So I have a button, so lightning button with label as search. On click, you call handle search. So I have a button with label as search. On click, you call handle search. So in handle search, what I am checking? I am checking this dot value. Is it null? It's not null. I'm checking that. And then I am calling the get ACC list method. So what is this get ACC list? I have defined it here. Get ACC list. What is this? It is a apex method, right? I have imported the apex method and I have stored it in the get ACC list local method, right? So whenever you are interacting with any apex method, when you import, you provide a name, right? So import from apex, store it here. So in JavaScript, we will use this. So what we say get SCC list and we pass in the parameter for search key. Like in Aura component, what we were doing, component.get c.get account list directly we were doing, right? And then we were saying action.set params, search key, this value. So here we already imported, and we stored it. And now we are just providing the value, search key, this is the value. Then this is the syntax actually. When you call a I mean, there what we were doing a callback, right? We use NQ action $a.NQ action, and we were sending it to Apex, and then we were using action.set callback to get the response. So here, how the syntax happens? Here we make the call, then we have the callback here set dot then. So once this callback is done, dot then you give the result. Okay, dot catch. If there is an exception, then it will come to dot catch. Okay, error. Right. So this is the syntax. Dot then result. This is your callback actually. Right. This is your callback syntax. There we are using action dot set callback, and we were saying this, and then we were using the callback function. Here you call the method. Dot then is for success. For success you set this attribute, whatever result you got, you set it here. For error, you throw me a toast message, and for toast message, again, because it's an event, again you can always get this syntax. Okay, event, and you dispatch the event. So how we fire? So I mean, any event we fire in Aura components, we were using event.fire. Here we use dispatch event. Okay, so to fire event we use dispatch event. All right, so what is this dot account? This we defined here at track, right? That's what we are setting. And where is this used? Accounts. If I go to my HTML, now I had my input text, then I had the button, then I'm using a table, right? Because if you see, I'm showing it on a table, so I'm using a table. Again, this syntax you will get it in your component library or Lightning design system as well. Okay, get that syntax, get that structure, and then so because we are dealing with list of records in Aura components, what we were using Aura if sorry, Aura iterations we were using, right? Here, see, in Aura, always I compare because we are well versed with that. So in Aura, we were using Aura colon whatever we were doing, right? Here, any additional method we want to use, like let's say if condition or iteration, we use template. Then for each means this is the loop. We were using Aura iteration. Here we use for each. For each, you have the list of accounts which we defined. Then for each item, what is the variable? Account. Then inside that again you have your account.id, name, whatever you wanted to show, you show that here, and that's it. Any questions here?
No pressure.
So again, I understand it's something new, but again your logic doesn't change, right? I mean, it's the same thing. You define your U component, you call your Apex component, you store the variables in JavaScript and show it here, right? Finally, just a little bit of syntaxes here and there that change, but the crux of the matter is the still you go to a JavaScript file to set the values. Just that some syntaxes are different as compared to Aura component. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we will again talk a few more important pointers for LWC in our next session. Okay. Let's have our session closed here. We got a good understanding, but I don't want to overload you with lot of information with LWC for now. I would certainly suggest please go through some trial head links which I will be sharing, and install Visual Studio Code, Salesforce CLI in your machines. Let me know if you are having any trouble with configuring it, because this is needed. Visual Studio Code, Salesforce CLI. Once you have installed these two, you need to install Salesforce extension pack, right? So once these three are done, once you have set the Salesforce CLI environment variable, we are good to start building projects in Visual Studio Code. So more to understand VS Code, let's first do that. Then we'll come to LWC questions. So let's configure that. If you face any trouble doing that, please shoot me a ping or a email, whatever you're comfortable with, and then I'll help you configure it. Then only you can practice it, right? It can't be practiced through dev console, so this setup is needed. Okay, so let's do that first, and then start building and exploring LWC. Okay,
Yeah, Prashant.
all right. Any questions?
No, Prashant.
Okay.